The first lecture that I'm going to present you with is going to describe how railroads changed our country. Here's a picture of what a train used to look like. For nearly 80 years, railroads were the primary method for long-distance travel and continental shipping. Does anyone want to take a guess, or do you want to sit there and guess at how long it would take to go from New York City to San Francisco before the Transcontinental Railroad was completed in 1869? From New York to San Francisco, in many cases, took over 4 months by this mode of travel. All right, the little horse and buggy cart system. All right, 4 months to go across the country. It took so long by wagon that these forward-thinking, these very intelligent men had an idea, and they said, we need to do something. We need to shorten the trip. So they thought, if we could build a railroad system that could go from one part of the country to the other, we would be in business. So the Transcontinental Railroad began. Here are just a few pictures to show you what it looked like. The Atlantic and Pacific coast are connected at Promontory Point, Utah in 1869. So that was the final place, the final meeting place was Promontory Point, this place in Utah. And this is a picture that was actually taken from that time. Okay, this is the Golden Spike. This is actually in the Smithsonian. This was what connected the two meeting points. Right? It was driven in by this Golden Spike. Now, with the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad, how long do you think it would take? Why don't you just take a guess? Think about how long. So if it was 4 months by wagon, what do you think now? All right, it was less than 10 days. It's a little mind-blowing. Less than 10 days to get from one part of the country to the other. Changes from the rails. Okay, can you guess the one thing that did not exist before the Transcontinental Railroad system? It's kind of difficult because you don't really think about it. You kind of just let it happen. Well, time zones, right? Time zones did not exist before the Transcontinental Railroad. What time zone are we here in Buxton, Maine? All right, do you know? It's the United States Eastern Standard Time Zone here in Buxton. All right. Now, the question to you is, what method did the country have for keeping track of time before time zones? I'm going to tell you, before time zones, each community kept its own. So Buxton might have had its own time, Standish might have had its own time zone, okay, Scarborough, Saco. Now Boston was 11 minutes ahead of New York City. Do you know why? Here's a little map. Find Boston. Yep, it's the one in the green. All right, it says Boston. And then New York's way to the west, at the bottom of this little picture here. Well, that's it. Because the sun rises in the east, so Boston saw the sun first before New York did. Do you know how many time zones there are in the U.S., including Alaska and Hawaii? Look at all the colors. So that we have 4 continental, and then there's a time zone for Alaska and one for Hawaii. How do time zones work? Do you know? The next time zone to the east is 1 hour ahead of us. The next time zone to the west is 1 hour behind us. So what does that mean? Well, if you're in Chicago, Illinois, and you're curious about what time it is in Pennsylvania, you just add an hour to the east. So if it's 10 a.m. in Chicago, in Philadelphia, it's going to be 11 a.m. How about if you're, say, you're skiing in Colorado, you're in Aspen, and you're curious about what time it is in California. Well, if it's 10 a.m. in Aspen, Colorado, It's going to be 9 a.m. in California. 1 hour behind. What were the benefits of the transcontinental railroad and the growth of the railroad industry? It improved the economy. Iron ore was used to build trains and make track. Coal was used to fuel locomotives. Timber was used to make the railroad ties and the cars. And steel in the 1880s replaced iron ore for tracks. The railroads added greatly to the wealth of a few people. To others, the railroads meant jobs. Coal. Where does coal come from? How do you get coal? Does it grow on trees? No. Okay. Coal comes from the ground. Coal miners worked in horrible conditions. So horrible that a lot of times they had children work in coal mines, as you can see in this illustration here. Children worked in the coal mines because the families needed the money to support their lifestyle. There were many dangers in coal mines. Okay? There's poison gas that was odorless was a regular threat. Carbon monoxide, right? So how did workers figure out when it was safe and when it wasn't? Well, here it is. They used birds. They used canaries to warn them of the gas. Canaries like to sing. They sent these birds in, and if the birds dropped dead, they knew that there was poison in the atmosphere. Iron. This is a picture of an iron mine. Lumber. Used for the railroad ties, right? It was used to build the cars. Right? Thousands of people worked in the logging industry. Where do you think all that lumber came from? Well, some of it came from Maine. Railroads allowed businesses to ship manufactured goods west in large quantities and much faster than ever before.